It was 72 years ago, a day Dale Magnus would never forget.
Joined the Navy January 7th of 1940.
Dale was ready to move on from his small-town farm life. He was 17 and ready for action.
I was on a farm in Colorado, and I was getting tired of milking cows before I went to school.
Well, I graduated from high school.
Here in Spokane, 17-year-old Bud Colburn was feeling the same way.
That was the answer. I went right out of high school, went into the Navy, and got overseas fast.
Both men were stationed at the beautiful Hawaiian naval base of Pearl Harbor. Bud was sent to work on the USS Regal, and Dale was assigned to the USS Cummings. Both sailors were just a few hundred yards from Battleship Row.
Being in the fleet, now that was something else. That was crazy. I mean, I thought this would eat me up. I just loved every bit of it.
But just as the two were settling into their new lives, things would change almost instantly.
It was early, 7 o'clock on a Sunday morning.
On December 7th, 1941, Bud was busy running errands on his ship when he saw an unfamiliar plane above.
I heard this buzzing, and I looked up, and here's this zero just coming right across, and I saw that red meatball. It seemed like about that time he dropped the torpedo.
That moment was the beginning of the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor.
Right away, they said, air raid on Pearl. This is no drill.
And no drill could have prepared them for what those Japanese fighter planes were unleashing all around them.
Every time they would dive down and let a bomb go, we'd hear a big thunder. Somebody would say, what the hell? And it scared the heck out of me. I mean, I was scared.
Hundreds of men were killed instantly. Others died from the burning oil in the ocean.
It was kind of an organized confusion.
Bud's ship was only slightly damaged in the attack, so crews turned their skills toward rescue and recovery efforts. Bud had no driver's license, but spent the day transporting injured sailors to the hospital.
A lot of them I saw, I wonder how they ever lived, if they ever did live, because this one guy, his uniform had been burned onto him.
Dale's destroyer narrowly missed major damage. He and his fellow sailors watched the Japanese bomb the USS Arizona nearby, which caused an incredible explosion heard around the base.
The whole island is just a ball of red flame, and when hundreds of feet up, just an enormous explosion.
The beautiful harbor turned into a war zone. It was complete devastation.
And a lot of the piers were still burning 2 days later. And this was so sad. And, everything directed, demolished planes laying everywhere.
In the aftermath of the attack, both sailors spent several years proudly fighting in World War II. Today, Dale and Bud look back on their time served and their time at Pearl Harbor. The images from that day are still clear in their minds, 70 years later. Some images they wish weren't so vivid.
It was a sight you never want to see again.
It just makes you want to cry. So sad.
Do you consider yourself a hero?
No. I do know what anybody would do.
Well, I don't know. I'm no hero. Well, that's for damn sure.
What is certain, these men are worthy of the many thank yous they receive for serving their country in a time of crisis. 6th and 7th. So we'll call you. I'll give you a call and let you know.
We're going over there.
We don't talk much about it unless we bump into somebody else that military.
At 96 years old, Bud Garvin has many memories from his military career, but he keeps most of them to himself.
I don't want to get to talk too much about it.
Clyde Buteau used to be a military photographer. He usually stays tight-lipped about his service, too.
On December 7th, 1941, Japan, like its infamous Axis partners, struck first and declared war afterwards.
But today, the men are taking a step back in time to share the most memorable day of their lives, 70 years ago.
I looked up and I could see all the guys running, getting shot. There was a sergeant running down the street yelling at the top of his voice, "Take cover, we're being attacked by the Japs."
The attack on Pearl Harbor was something neither man was prepared for. Practically kids at the time, it rattled them to their core.
They strafed us and bombed us. We took cover wherever you could when they came over.
Bud was an Army lieutenant living at Wheeler Army Airfield, a primary target site of the Japanese. He was about to read the Sunday morning paper when he got the call.
The phone rang. I was report to your duty station immediately.
He knew right away it was war and started getting troops ready for battle.
And each company had a certain area along the beach to protect from any invasion. It was 10 minutes to 8 when the Japs came in.
Clyde was in the Army Air Force stationed over at Hickam Field. He was on kitchen patrol when the Japanese bombed the mess hall.
When we're outside, the planes are coming down and shooting at us.
Clyde says he was suddenly immersed in the fire from those Japanese fighter planes.
Hit that and killed all the KPs and the cooks.
It's a horrific memory he'll never shake.
They opened that door up and all the guys were sitting around there like they'd fallen asleep. The concussion killed them all.
While these two men rarely speak of that heart-wrenching day, the medals and photographs they display are quiet reminders of the war they lived through and the friends they lost.
He was a criminal right off the bat.
Right off the bat.
Their friendship is like any you would expect from a Navy guy and a Marine.
Never had anything to do with him. And you probably never had anything to do with any sailors.
Dennis Mickelson prides himself on his sailor heritage. Ray Garland, on the other hand, is a die-hard Marine.
And I thought that's what I'd like to do is join the Marine Corps.
They joined the military when they were teenagers.
It took you as a 17-year-old.
No, I was 18.
No, you weren't. Oh, 41. Oh, okay.
Yeah, 41. Get your hearing on, partner. Okay. Anyhow, that's when I joined.
But their friendship goes deeper than just the playful rivalry. The two share a common bond that dates back 70 years. Dennis and Ray were both stationed at Pearl Harbor in December of 1941.
December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
Dennis was working on the battleship West Virginia at the time of the attack. He had just gotten off night watch when his ship was hit by a Japanese torpedo. The ship quickly started filling with water.
And I'm not sure anybody ever said abandon ship, but they started to abandon ship, and so I did too.
When the first Japanese plane I seen, I knew the war started.
Ray was standing watch just a few feet away on the USS Tennessee.
When they dropped their bombs and they come by the ships and the gunners were shooting at us. You could see their helmets when they come by. They were next to the ground.
He was putting out a fire on his ship when flames funneled up the hose he was holding. Ray was badly burned and blinded for 3 days. He later received a Purple Heart for his actions.
And they had this bandage around my head.
While the injuries were only temporary, both men were left with enduring emotional battle scars. The lasting memories are something neither will ever forget.
I think about things. Things happen every day sometimes that'll remind you of stuff that's ever forever there.
Thankfully, Ray and Dennis have each other to find comfort.
Well, with Dennis and I, we were pretty close, being one ship here and one ship here. We knew similar situation.
Today, the men are part of American history and are proud to have served their country.
That's okay.
But they're especially grateful they found each other.
Who's more of a troublester out of the both of
Oh,
them?
he is, by far.
You agree with that, Dennis?
No.
And there's one more subject on which the two will never agree. Who's better, the Navy sailor or the Marine?
Oh, they played the Air Force song, and I said, Dennis, get up, and he don't hear it, so he gets up and sings it. So I got him.
I don't hear good enough, so I didn't realize what song they were playing.
I got him. You got a kid a little bit.
Scores of planes were bruised and battered.
70 years ago, Charlie Boyer and Sid Kennedy didn't realize the devastation they endured on December 7th would also create their future bond.
We haven't bunched out on each other yet. No, we're good friends.
There's just an awful lot in common with each other.
But they didn't know that until a few years ago when they connected at a Spokane Pearl Harbor survivors meeting.
I was relating the story, and all of a sudden Charlie jumps over the... He says, "I'm Charlie."
After talking, they realized something incredible. They had known each other many years ago when they were stationed together in Hawaii in 1941.
The mind went kind of blank, and I'd forgotten him altogether.
What the two couldn't forget was the most impacting day from their past. Their new friendship brought back many memories they can never escape.
I could see a plane coming from the ocean towards the sick bay. And just as the people got in and the door slammed shut, the bullets hit pow, 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 all around the door.
The men were working at Kaneohe Naval Air Station when the Japanese attacked the island.
Absolute chaos. Nobody ever had anything like that, and all of a sudden...
Sid spent the day tending to hundreds of men injured by gunfire and bombs.
Unfortunately, I had to carry some bodies out to the morgue. Gunshot wounds, and there was portions of the body missing.
Charlie was driving back to base when Japanese fighter planes started an air attack. He dove under his own truck to avoid the spray of gunfire.
Couldn't have done anything except throw rocks at them, and they was probably low enough to hit them. We could have hit them, but they was too darn fast.
The attack on Pearl Harbor left lasting effects on the two men, who saw things no one should ever have to see.
It's like pulling a bad tooth. You like to talk about it, but you like to get it over.
It took a toll on Charlie for many years afterward.
You figure, well, you're not going to live much longer. Every day you figure, well, today could be the day.
It's a day he will never be able to shake from his mind.
No, I will never forget that.
But what's gotten the men through the hard times is their survivors group, a band of brothers who share a common bond.
I would say like a brotherhood, yes.
And these two have become like brothers. They relate in a way only someone who lived through the attack can.
There's something about when you're being shot at, these fellows know what the heck I went through, and I know what they went through. It's a common feeling.
If you've ever wondered what it takes to make a marriage successful,
let her make most of the decisions.
Just ask Warren and Betty Schott. After all, they know a thing or two about it. They've been married 73 years.
And we were married in a cemetery, Forest Lawn Memorial Park, and spent our honeymoon in Death Valley.
That's how we started off.
They met through a mutual friend on the 4th of July. The year was 1936.
She said, "Oh, tomorrow's the 4th, and we planned a picnic. Hope you don't mind, but I set you up with the date." He said, "Don't do me any favors. I've just gotten rid of one girl."
Yeah.
Their romance was one out of the movies. They fell in love, married 2 years later, and soon after, Betty followed her new husband to his new base in Hawaii.
I can't remember how long I was in Pearl Harbor before Bet came.
2 months.
Was it that close?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and you brought the car also.
And I brought the car.
Yeah.
And I don't know who he was the happiest to see, the car or me.
Warren was in the Navy, stationed at Ford Island, just a few miles from Pearl Harbor Naval Base. The newlyweds were eager to explore their new life together and soaked up every minute of it.
We took trips every chance that I could get away from the island. It was enjoyable.
But we had Hawaii when it was paradise.
But their life of paradise didn't last long. It was a lazy December morning in 1941. Betty had just woken up and looked out her window.
She says, "Oh, there's a lot of smoke and fire down." And I said, "No, there can't be."
Warren ran to the window and saw a Japanese fighter plane diving toward the island.
Here were these big red balls. And I yelled into her, and I said, "That's a Japanese airplane? We're at war."
Warren and Betty had to act fast. They immediately took other families in their complex to safety.
As we were going, here's a plane coming in, and it was low enough that we could see the chap in the after cockpit with the machine gun.
There was so much shrapnel from our guns shooting at them and such. It was just like rain coming down, pieces of metal. It was beginning to sink in that we were in bad trouble.
While Warren went out to help his fellow sailors, Betty went to work in the supply building.
I filled fire extinguishers and unloaded guns and did that sort of thing. Wherever they needed us, they gave us big boots to put on.
When the attack was over, most families were told to leave the island.
I did not see any other woman on base after that. Everyone evacuated.
But Betty stayed by Warren's side.
It was a comfort to know that we had each other.
The two stayed at Ford Island for several months after the attack, then were stationed at a new base in Virginia. It was a long journey home for Betty.
Seasick coming home on the ship. Then this business of being nauseous didn't go away, and I was pregnant.
Pregnant. I was pleased because I thought, well, if I don't come back from this business, at least she'll have somebody.
And I still do.
You stepped out of a dream.
2 children and 73 years later, Warren and Betty look back on their memories and their marriage. Pearl Harbor was a day that shook America, but it also brought this couple closer.
We know each other so well that we can finish sentences or we can interrupt without being mad at each other.
So what's their secret to a lasting marriage?
Patience. And being a good friend.
And of course, letting the wife make the decisions.
He has. And I hope I've made pretty good ones, if he's still here.
Hugging and kissing all the time, but she's mine.
To myself, alone and apart.
KREM 2 News at noon starts now.
And we begin with breaking news in the downtown Spokane backpack bomb investigation. Good afternoon. I'm Sten Wallstrom. Right now, the FBI is executing a search warrant in Stevens County near the town of Addy, and we're told at least one person has been arrested. Witnesses tell us this is happening at 12 Mile Road and Townsend-Saxman Road, just off of Highway 395, as we show you there on the map.
Now at 5. The FBI has broken the case of the deadly backpack bomber wide open. Federal officials swarmed the small Stevens County town of Addy this morning, and by this afternoon, the man suspected of planting that bomb was in federal court in Spokane.
KREM 2 News at 5 starts